Camp Cretaceous' hidden adventure is just around the corner and will take us back to Isla between seasons 2 and 3 of the show. While it may reveal new secrets that Jurassic World contained, some of those secrets may have been very close to actually being included in the show. Jack from Jurassic Outpost here, and today we are going to be counting down the top 10 things cut from Camp Cretaceous. Before diving into this list, if you're keen to learn more about the upcoming hidden adventure, then be sure to hit the link in the description for our video analysis of the trailer. Huge thanks to Lewis Lee for helping to compile this information, and we should mention, during the development of Camp Cretaceous, just like any other show, numerous ideas are thrown at the writer's table. Many of these ideas end up being in the show, but the more likely scenario is that most of them don't, with only the better, more logical and fitting ideas being chosen for the final story. Many avenues and story threads were considered for Camp Cretaceous, as we will see from the following list. Owen Grady and Claire Dearing. That's right, the heavy-handed, all skills, no personality lead character of Jurassic World, Owen Grady, and his no-nonsense, high-heeled counterpart Claire Dearing were set to appear in Camp Cretaceous. We learned in the ultimate visual history book for Jurassic World that the plan was to feature Owen Grady and Claire Dearing, but the idea was ultimately scrapped. Writer Zach Stentz says, "It was decided over the course of development that it would be better to keep Owen and Claire off screen. Instead, 2 new adult characters were developed, camp counselors, Dave and Roxy." So the trilogy leads, Claire and Owen, would have continued their roles in the first season of the show. We definitely think the switch to new characters, Dave and Roxy, helped keep the show fresh and allowed for an expansion into the character lineup. However, we do also know that Owen was meant to remain in the show even after the invention of Dave and Roxy, and he even appeared on this character board with those two and the campers. Abseiling or cliff climbing adventure. One of the activities designed for the campers would have been abseiling, or ascending the cliffs of Isla Nublar. Numerous ideas for the show were explored during early development, and in various pieces of concept art, we can see the various stages of this idea brought to life. We can see campers on the sides of the cliff face, while pteranodons circle nearby. Eggs in nests can also be seen. The art really is beautiful and certainly invokes a Jurassic feeling. While these are early concepts, likely constructed before even the characters have been thought of, we can imagine a number of scenarios where this idea would fit into the main story. Perhaps the Jurassic World breakout happens while the campers are abseiling down the cliffs of Nublar with the 2 camp counselors. The group would be attacked by escaped flying reptiles, having to descend rapidly into the jungle below. Or perhaps they encounter these cliffs long after the dinosaurs have all escaped, using the abseiling equipment to traverse to a location otherwise unreachable. The campers would then unknowingly stumble upon the pteranodon's nests on the sides of the dauntingly steep cliffs. It was also shown in concept art that at one point in time, one of the camp activities would have been riding the dinosaurs. Other hatchling mascots before Bumpy. Before deciding on the Ankylosaurus for the beast that befriends Broken Ben, the writers considered many other dinosaur species for that role, including the Maiasaurus, Parasaurolophus, and Pachycephalosaurus. They even considered an Allosaurus. While they ultimately went with a baby Ankylosaurus with a growth deformity, it would have been pretty cool to see other baby dinosaurs too, or even have other species bond with other characters in a similar way to Ben and Bumpy. The Allosaurus was later considered to make an appearance as an adult in the show, with multiple toys made based on its unique color scheme. However, it ultimately didn't make the cut and is only mentioned offhand by the campers. The Dilophosaurus. Now I know what you're thinking, and yes, the Dilophosaurus did end up appearing in both seasons 4 and 5, but the 3rd season introduced a new species to the mix, the Monolophosaurus. However, production documents tell us that this species, which was a very welcomed addition to the Jurassic World lineup, was originally intended to be the Dilophosaurus.
What's your story?
Somehow, I don't think the campers would have ended up quite as alive as they would have if the monos attacking them were actually Dilophosaurs. Either way, the inclusion of both of these dinosaurs eventually did happen, so we got the best of both worlds. The Styracosaurus. Did you know Styracosaurus was considered early on for Camp Cretaceous, appearing in one of its primary concept pieces? This was later swapped out for the Sinoceratops, making it the second time the species was considered for a Jurassic story, but cut before being designed. The first time being in Jurassic Park 3. In an early version of the script, Dr. Grant shows footage captured from Isla Sorna during his lecture at the beginning of the film, discussing the intelligence and capabilities of the velociraptors while they hunt a herd of styracosaurs, captured by a documentary crew. Now we know why Dr. Grant knew what the velociraptors of Jurassic Park 3 looked like.
Alan!
And before we move on, we also wanted to note that the Triceratops was also meant to appear in the show, but just didn't make the cut. Dr. Wu's secret partner. As we mentioned at the beginning, numerous ideas and plots are considered for the show during the development phase. One consideration was building some further backstory for the character of Dr. Wu by introducing his former partner. While much information is not available, we know the writers considered introducing his partner through Dave and Roxy. The partner was said to have been the idealist, doing it all for non-capitalistic reasons, and was referred to as the Zealot. Dave and Roxy were to recruit her help to rescue the campers, and she had altruistic motivations for the animals. However, she had an extreme personality with extreme beliefs, and the experience would reshape her into a villain of sorts. She would eventually change her mind and seek to kill all of the dinosaurs, and the campers would need to stop her. This is alongside the other villains of the story. It's really beginning to sound complex. Of note, this character sounds very similar in concept to Dr. Sorkin from the Telltale Jurassic Park game, who shared similar motivations and extreme and out-of-touch ideals which shaped her into a villain. It's quite possible they were inspired by that character and even would have used the name. In all likelihood, this was cut, as if you took the villainous aspects away, it treads on very similar territory of Charlotte Lockwood's character in Jurassic World Dominion. As a final note, did you know that while writing the Lost World novel, Michael Crichton had initially introduced a secret brother of Dr. Henry Wu named Elliot, who also would have played a similar part. New hybrids. That's right, while the Indominus Rex and the E750 both appeared in the show, the writers originally considered for other hybrids to join the campers on their adventure.
100%.
Check out some of these designs. It is of course possible that these were meant to appear instead of the Scorpius Rex, however, it seems more likely that they were considered as additional manticore creatures such as the Spinoceratops babies introduced in season 4. There's also a chance that the Stegoceratops from the monitor in Dr. Wu's lab at Jurassic World could also have shown up, especially with the common belief being that this hybrid is indeed out there on Nublar. Ben not surviving. You may remember the difficult finale of the first season where the campers are desperately trying to avoid incoming attacks from pteranodons while riding the Jurassic World monorail. Weakest of all the campers, Ben is attacked by the flying reptiles and carried out of the monorail, later being dropped into the jungle. Turns out, originally, Ben was supposed to die.
Hello, Ben.
Many remember watching the finale and believing that Ben did actually die and would not return. Keeping his return until the 5th episode of the second season definitely had an impact on the viewers. There was an early version where Ben doesn't survive, which probably would have been too dark. It definitely would have taught the campers an interesting lesson, and definitely raised the stakes of the show. But while it was likely a little bit too dark for the tone of Camp Cretaceous, it certainly would have upped the realism element of the series, and allowed for an even deeper emotional response from the other campers. Needless to say, after witnessing Ben's complete growth in confidence and personality, we're glad he survived. Biosyn. Already well known among Jurassic fans, Biosyn did not end up being in Camp Cretaceous, other than the throwaway Dodgson cameo in season 5, of course.
Great. This is great.
The company, technically first introduced in Jurassic World Dominion, actually has ties dating all the way back to 1993's Jurassic Park. Lewis Dodgson, the shady red-shirted character who meets Dennis Nedry near the beginning of the movie, worked for Biosyn and eventually ends up as CEO, as seen in Dominion.
Wow, this is big. I'm Lewis.
Dodgson, yeah.
Hi.
You're Lewis Dodgson?
I am. How do you do?
We didn't expect to actually see you here.
Oh, well, I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Lewis Dodgson himself appeared in Camp Cretaceous' 5th and final season, and while he does not mention the company he works for by name, it is indeed the same Lewis Dodgson we see in Dominion, the Camp Cretaceous timeline setting the animated Dodgson's appearance a few years prior to when we see him in Dominion.
What? God.
However, writers did originally plan for Biosyn to appear in the show, and not only appear, but be revealed to be the company that recruited or blackmailed Sammy to smuggle dinosaur DNA off of Isla Nublar. That company eventually became Manticore. Kenji's dad was also considered to have ties to the company, and the story would have brought everything full circle. Rather than things like Brads and video game controlled dinosaurs, Biosyn was more focused on the genetic breakthroughs of creating hybrids, like the Indominus Rex and the Scorpius, which was what they were seeking in earlier versions of the story. Alas, the studio wanted to hold back on Biosyn for the film to avoid spoilers, a choice that now feels a little strange. Biosyn being in Camp Cretaceous would have made Colin Trevorrow's comments about the show being intertwined with Dominion a little bit more meaningful, especially if we got to see the very same company, locations, and characters a few years before seeing them in Dominion. Isla Sorna. And number 1, of course, the mysterious and ever disappearing island of Isla Sorna. The inclusion of Site B, InGen's second dinosaur island, would have helped to wrap up the story for the audience who, after 2001's Jurassic Park 3, are left completely clueless as to what is actually happening on that island.
I bet you Eric's in there, don't you think? I'd bet my bottom dollar.
When we last left it, it was full of dinosaurs and a handful of new species not seen in the previous 2 movies. Needless to say, there are still stories to be told there, and the island fully presents itself a location worthy of a return.
We have to go back!
Since the story hasn't changed, you can check out our video from a couple of years ago now on Isla Sorna to learn all there is to know about this possibly fake island.
That's first priority after we're finished.
The teaser trailer for the 4th season of the show, yep, that one, looked and felt very much like Isla Sorna, the island that is 87 miles southwest of Isla Nublar. The kids left Nublar on a boat, sailing in any which direction they could to find land. They eventually ended up on the shores of Isla Sorna.
It's false. No way. Not this time. It's fiction. We made it up. We made this one up. It's a made-up tale.
The show was certainly teasing a familiar landscape and fauna, which eventually ended up being Manticore Island. Circling back to Biosyn, we learned in Jurassic World Dominion that after the events of the first Jurassic World, they acquired Isla Sorna and even brought some of the species from that island to their valley in the Dolomites. If Biosyn were to be the main other company and location in Camp Cretaceous, it certainly paints an interesting picture. What we now believe is that Isla Sorna was the plan. The Dominion movie delay and subsequent rewrites led to the writers of Camp Cretaceous wanting to not tread too heavily into territory that was still being worked out by Colin, so they avoided the same company Biosyn and avoided a potential island, Isla Sorna. Sadly, this wasn't the best decision, as it also never ended up in the movies, making the entire ascent feel completely unfulfilling. Scott mentioned in an interview with us that he wanted to not step on the film's story with the show, which also suggests that maybe at one point the film itself would have returned to Sorna more heavily. Maybe this was when Dominion was supposed to be 2 films, not 1, but we'll save that story for another day. If the writers needed a new island, one with dinosaurs already on it, where shady organizations could have been conducting shady work, then look no further than the already established, long-lost island with dinosaurs already on it, where shady organizations were once conducting shady work. It's Isla Sorna.
Site B.
Before we close off, we have a few honorable mentions. Did you know we could have seen Daniel Kahn being arrested in the show after the events of season 5, although this was later cut? The T-Rexes from seasons 4 and 5 were designed based on the Lost World T-Rex family. Scott Creamer believes that Big E.T. is Doe, but the initial designs implies that it was originally meant to be the male, the buck. And there was an alternative green colored Carnotaurus, which can be seen in this render and this piece of concept art. It even got a toy from Captives. And those were the top 10 things cut From Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous. Did you like the list? Were you surprised by some of these revelations? Would you have chosen something else in your top 10? Join the discussion down below and be sure to subscribe for more Camp Cretaceous and Jurassic World videos. Head to JurassicOutpost.com for more.